Welcome to TalkNorth.com. Thanks to our longtime producer, Brandon Morton. Please download before you listen. If you'd like to advertise with us, you can reach us at talknorthpodcast@gmail.com. And please follow us on Twitter at TalkNorthPod. 2 promo codes to be aware of. BiteSquad.com. Use the promo code TalkNorth to get your first delivery free. And go to SodaStick.com, the great local apparel company. Use the promo code YouBetcha to get free shipping on any sized order.
Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on the show, Steve. Should be a good one. Thanks for having me, Steven.
Double S anytime, man.
Christopher Mando Russo here. You are listening to Steven Strom on TalkNorth.com.
Always passionate, always fiery. You're listening to the Strom Sports Show. Take it away, Steven.
Well, I thought I was smelling roses until Saturday afternoon when the Minnesota Golden Gophers completely flopped against the Wisconsin Badgers. 38-17, Wisconsin retains the Paul Bunyan axe. Gophers drop to 10-2. Wisconsin wins the Big Ten West. PJ Fleck is still going to say in his press conference that they're co-champs, but who's playing in the Big Ten Championship versus Ohio State, PJ, and that's Wisconsin. Welcome in here to the Strom Sports Show, episode 72 here. Big shout out to my producer, Brandon Morton, Jim Sue. And if you want to advertise with the show, TalkNorth.com is the place to go. Bob Condotta of the Seattle Times will join me just after this. We'll talk about the Seattle Seahawks Minnesota Viking game coming on Monday night. But before all that, let's get into the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Let me ask you this, guys. The audience. Are you surprised that the Gophers got embarrassed and now coach on a big stage? Are you? Because everything that happened on Saturday was predictable, and I anticipated the entire thing. Let's just start with this. Let's start with the weather. Rain and snow. You knew it was going to be an ugly game. You knew the Gophers weren't going to be able to play that pretty offense at RPO that they were doing the entire year. You knew that stuff was going to have to change coaching staff-wise. They had to adapt to the weather, and that's just how it goes sometimes. Mother Nature forces you to adapt. It forces you to win the game within the trenches. So I'm going to do a little checkbox here with the advantages either Wisconsin or Minnesota. And weather definitely played a huge factor in this, and that's why I'm starting it off with this. Weather like this forces you to run the ball. Wisconsin has a outstanding offensive line. I mean, let's be honest. It's an offensive line football factory for the NFL. Check, Wisconsin, right? We agree with that? Defenses are on full display when it's like this because you got to stop the run, a little slippery, you can miss tackles. Wisconsin's got one of the best defenses in the country. Check, Wisconsin. The Gophers are a big play team. They live off the RPO. They're an explosive offensive team now. They score quick. But, you can't throw the deep ball at a high clip during a hailstorm. Wisconsin, check. The entire situation, how this started, how the precipitation completely unfolded was advantage Wisconsin. I saw it from a mile away. What the Cowboys and the Patriots did last Sunday, you knew who was going to win that game. It was in New England. It was in Foxborough. It was a rainy, cold, damp day, and a lot of times the better coach team wins, the more physical team wins, and the more mentally stronger team wins because you got to be ready to face adversity. You're going to turn the ball over in these types of games, and you got to be strong to respond to it. You knew that the Patriots were going to lose that game. This is the same situation I felt with the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Everything that happened Saturday was extremely predictable, and it started with the weather. You know what else was predictable in this loss, guys? The mentality of PJ Fleck versus Paul Chryst. The way both of these coaches called the game could not have been more opposite. And the mentality that I got from PJ Fleck, it was so predictable. Gophers aren't going to win this game because they were playing not to lose. Let me give you a couple of examples here. Gophers had the ball up 7-0 first quarter. 4th and 2 comes up on the Wisconsin 39. You're at home. You're 10-1. You got a chance to go to the Big Ten Championship to face Ohio State. And hell, if you win that game, you could be sitting in Miami come January. Instead of him going for it, you know what he does? He wants to play the field position game, and he punts. What do you think happens when Wisconsin gets an opportunity like that? And they did. Badgers had 4th and 3 and 4th and 2 in the second quarter. You know what Wisconsin did? You know what Paul Chryst said? Oh, we're going for this. And you know what they did? They capitalized on it. Badgers take a 10-7 lead into halftime. Here's the difference between Saturday. Paul Chryst opened up the playbook. He got creative. He knew he was going to empty out all of his bullets in this game. He knew he had an opportunity to get to the Big Ten championship, and he wasn't going to leave anything else on the table. He was playing to win the game. And a lot of times, Wisconsin kind of gets this bad rep to being a vanilla offense. It's a vanilla program. It's not a lot of flavor. It's just a bunch of old school. We're going to run the ball down your throat, and we're going to do the same thing over and over. We got great running back, great offensive line, and we're just going to stick to our game plan. But you know what? Wisconsin mixed it up. Wisconsin was running reverses on kickoffs in a snowstorm. Wisconsin threw for nearly 300 yards in a snowstorm. Wisconsin played to win the game. You know another thing that was predictable of this? PJ Fleck's hypocrisy. Because every time I heard a press conference with PJ Fleck this year, after a win, because they were mostly wins this year, he would say the same thing in the press conference. We're 0-0, or we're 1-0, and then when Sunday comes, we're 0-0, and then we start back all over, one game at a time. Well, you know what, PJ? Minnesota was 10-1 coming into this game, and you knew that. And Wisconsin was 9-2 coming into this game, and you knew that. Wisconsin had one more loss than Minnesota, and the Badgers knew they had to win this game. The sense of urgency was far greater than Minnesota. Whether you like to hear that or not, that showed. Minnesota went against their mantra on Saturday. They got into a dogfight and said, forget that 0-0 concept, because when the tough got going, they said, man, screw that. We're not going by that. And that's the definition, and that's the real test of a true culture. Because when the tough gets going, what are you going to do? And when the tough got going, that 0-0 saying that Fleck was saying after every game, that was crumpled and thrown out in the garbage. Here's what I'm saying, guys. Minnesota looked at the records, and it changed the way they played. If the Gophers were 0-0, why did PJ Fleck play like a team who couldn't handle the stage or moment? Why'd they play scared? Why didn't they go for it on 4th and 2? Let me ask you this. If the roles were reversed, Gophers are 9-2, Wisconsin's 10-1, you're in Madison. You're on the road. You have 4th and 2. You're up 7-0 in the first quarter. Are you going for it? The 10-1 team played tight. They played not to lose, and they got boat raced in their own boat. The 9-2 team, Wisconsin, they played loose. They were aggressive, and they deserve to be playing in the Big Ten championship against Ohio State. And here's the harsh reality, Gopher fans. Minnesota beat one good team this year. And everything that I was worried about coming into this last 5 games, this last 4-game stretch against Wisconsin, Northwestern, Iowa, and Penn State, it all came to a head because Minnesota beat one good team, and that was Penn State, and they barely beat them. You know who Minnesota ended up beating other than Penn State in the Big Ten? Illinois, who finished 6-6, Purdue, who finished 4-8, Nebraska 5-7, Northwestern 3-9, Maryland 3-9, and Rutgers 2-10. Minnesota's losses? Oh, they were to Iowa, who finished 9-3, and Wisconsin, who finished 10-2. Both games, they were badly out-coached. Can you say paper tiger with me? Because that's what the Gophers are. And I know everyone's going to kill me on this about, oh, they won 10 games, and they did so many, and they did. And PJ Fleck does have this program going. And I am excited for the future. I think he's done a tremendous job. But beyond all the great points that I just made, and that I knew that this was going to happen, you know the biggest reason why I wasn't surprised about Saturday's result? Because this is Minnesota. This is what Minnesota sports is all about. They turn some heads, hint, hint, Minnesota Twins. They get to the bright lights, hint, hint, when they face the New York Yankees. And you know what happens, guys? They get bullied. They get tormented. Minnesota is the annoying fly in your house that you get in the summer for a few days, and you let it fly around. All right, it's not really bothering me. But as soon as you want that fly out of there, you grab the newspaper, right? Here we go. And you get them out. And that's what Minnesota is. They're an annoying fly to people. That's really what it is. Because as soon as the Twins faced a great team in the Yankees, they got swept. Everyone was right about the Twins. The AL Central stunk. And as soon as they played a great team or a good team, they got swept. Same thing with the Golden Gophers. They played a horrible schedule. And credit, they beat Penn State. But as soon as they played some teams that are a little bit better than them, they got boat raced. And that's the bottom line. They lost to Iowa, and they got embarrassed at home, and they were non-competitive against the Badgers, which can't happen. Can't happen against your rival. And it happened. The best analogy I can really think of when it comes to Minnesota sports is a scene in Starsky and Hutch with Owen Wilson and Ben Stiller. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Ben Stiller's in his mom's car who passed away, and the mom gave it to him. Vince Vaughn is the antagonist in this story, and Vince Vaughn is in his yacht, okay? And Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson need to catch this guy. He's a drug dealer, right? And Ben Stiller's in his mother's car. And Owen Wilson wants Ben Stiller to land the car on Vince Vaughn's yacht. Here's the scene.
Okay, we're going to take this car and land it on that boat. You want to crash the car into his boat? No, I want to land it on that boat. Now go. Go! I can't do it!
This is unbelievable. Here you get me out here to risk my life, and now you're telling me you can't do this? You're crying again.
I'm not crying. This is different. It's my mother. She always used to say that this was too much car for me to handle.
She said that?
You couldn't handle the V8.
The example here can handle the V8, right? That's the V8 is the expectation, the stage, the pressure. That's what it is for Minnesota sports. And once they get to that pressure and that stage, it's the same story. Mike Zimmer's the same way. And I hope PJ Fleck isn't this way either. He has some credibility with his Penn State victory. But the bottom line is, the number one reason why I wasn't surprised is because this is Minnesota sports, and this is what it's about. And until it changes, it's never going to change, in my mind. If the Timberwolves are in a big spot in a big-time playoff game, you know who I'm picking. Whoever they're playing against. Vikings, same way. Gophers, same way. It's a curse that needs to be broken. Twins won in 91. That's fine. It's been a very long time since that. Ben Stiller just couldn't handle the V8 of that car. And for Minnesota sports, they just can't handle that pressure on that big stage and deliver. Bob Condotta, he is up next here from the Seattle Times. We'll break down the Viking game, what to look out for. Get a little positive here on the Strom Sports Show. Thanks for hanging with us here on a beautiful Sunday morning. And we're joined here by Bob Condotta from the Seattle Times. He covers the Seattle Seahawks and also the Washington Huskies. He's here to join us today to preview the Monday night matchup between the Seahawks and the Vikings. Bob, Steven Strom here of TalkNorth.com. Happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for giving me some time today.
Sure, yeah, how you doing?
Everything's good. I wanted to first get a little injury update. I saw there was a couple starters listed, Jadeveon Clowney, Jaron Reed. Give me a little update on what their status was today. We're talking on a Friday here.
Yeah, well, we're actually talking before practice, so I don't have anything new on the Friday practice, so the Seahawks may be doing things a little bit later and being on the West Coast and all that, so but we'll see. My hunch would be Clowney's going to play, and the Reed will be a little bit iffier. Clowney was examined for sort of a sports hernia situation. It sounds like they didn't find anything significant, so it's sort of just a managing him through it. He didn't play against the Eagles. Pete Carroll saying he's optimistic he's going to play, so we'll see if he practices. But he's had weeks where he didn't practice much, and he played fine. So it's hard to know it's always been hard to know all season how much to read into the practice situation with him. Reed has a sprained ankle, and so we'll see on him. He's probably going to be a little bit more questionable, but same thing. I think with the Monday night, the extra day of rest might help him.
All right, let's stick with the Seattle defense. The Seahawks have forced 16 turnovers in the past 6 games, including 8 in the past 2 against San Francisco and Philadelphia. They're third in the league. What has changed? I mean, there's been a lot of talk about Seattle's defense this year not being as good, but what has changed over the last few weeks that they're turning people over?
Well, they've had a really significant change in their secondary. Quandre Diggs, who they acquired from Detroit, just stepped into the starting lineup. So he did that 2 games ago against the 49ers and had an interception in the first game, had a fumble recovery in the second game. They feel like he's really sort of settled down their safety position. That's been a real revolving door all season. This is the first year they don't have either Earl Thomas or Cam Chancellor back there, and so they struggled a little bit to kind of find the right combo. But with Diggs and Bradley McDougald, that's really come together for them. The pass rush, against the 49ers was phenomenal. Jadeveon Clowney sort of had the game of his life in that game. And last week, Clowney didn't play, but the Lions still played. The Eagles are really beat up on their offensive line, so I think it's worth noting that. But the Seahawks were able to take advantage of it. Ziggy Ansah got healthy. He's a guy they paid a lot of money to, and he struggled quite a bit, but he played really well against the Eagles. So, I don't know, there's huge schematic differences other than I think with